YouTube, what the crap's going on? HeirofCarthage here, and it has been a while since I've gotten some coverage in on the Warhammer World Championship. It has worked its way into the playoff phase, and also, if you do want to donate to the prize pool, which is rather large at this point, I think it's over $4,000, it'll be distributed amongst the top 8 players. That is still available for today, which is April the 16th, I think. Would have been helpful to look at the date before I did this. 17th. Today, April 17th. Tomorrow, April 18th. It'll be taken down on Monday the 19th. So if you do want to donate and support that, you don't have to, but if you can and would like to, it's an awesome tournament, and the people who put it together have put so much work into it. I know VM Moores is the one who's been helping me get access to replays and help, deliver stuff like the thumbnail that we used today, so a lot of good stuff. All right, well, we came here for battles, and this is going to be a fun matchup. This is going to be the Prussian Prince versus Gobbo Slayer. Now, Prussian Prince is a person in the newer to the Warhammer community, though he's been here a while, but someone that I've known in the Total War community for quite a long time. He runs his own channel, made a lot of videos back in the day on Shogun 2, Napoleon, all kinds of stuff. Great Total War player. Gobbo Slayer I'm less familiar with. So I wish I could say I know all this stuff, but I do not. But anyway, so we'll see what happens in this. I expect that we're going to see some great play between two great players, or else you wouldn't have made it to this point out of hundreds of players where you're in the playoffs. These are best of 5 matches. There's no way for me to make everything here a total surprise, right? It's because some people will be like, don't show the replays because then we don't know the surprise. I won't show the replays. But, like, you could always look at the length of the video and all these other things to spoil it for yourself. There's no way for me to make that perfect. It is what it is, okay? I won't show the replays, so you don't know how many battles there are or anything else like that. But that's about all I can do to try and keep the surprise for you. But let's jump in to battle number 1. So, battle number 1 is going to be on the Iron Sand Desert, and it is a Bretonnia mirror matchup. You can see Prussian Prince has gone double Paladin, Fey Enchantress, Peasants. We're going to have some Grail Knights mixed in with some Knights of the Realm. And then Gobbo Slayer is also Fey Enchantress. I'm assuming that the healing, the Chalice, which is basically the Comet of Kazandora and all that stuff, is much preferred because if it scores a big hit on a cavalry blob, I would assume that the magic damage that it does is going to be quite devastating to units like Grail Guardians, Grail Knights, other stuff that use physical resistance as one of their primary means of lasting longer in a fight. Paladin is a pretty obvious support unit here because of the anti-large, and the Fey is going to need some support. And then Peasants are, of course, charge bait, so I'm not terribly surprised by the army picks here, considering that this is a competitive matchup. And when it comes down to being purely competitive, the attack power of Bretonnia is in its Knights, and, as one might expect, you're just using Peasants for charge bait and trying to get the Knights to do all the work for you. Some of the only big build differences here is that we're going to see some, did I see some Grail Guardians here. Grail Guardians are not great on the charge, but they're a decent chop-em-up unit if they get left in combat a long time. Better against stuff with low armor, but they're very survivable in a general sense of the word. We're going to see an early engagement here between both Fey Enchantresses, a whole bunch of Grail Knights, and all the Paladins. Everybody's going to jump in, and look, we see the Chalice coming in from both sides. I can imagine this one belongs to Prussian Prince. That one was, I'm assuming, from Gobbo Slayer. Now, Gobbo Slayer has got the red around his banners here, as these replays came from Prussian Prince. And no, just because it comes from Prussian Prince doesn't mean that he wins the outcome of all the battles. Both players have to support all the replays. We're just watching these from his perspective. So here we go. We're going to see a lot of cycle charging. The Peasants, again, being used for charge bait and being used as an opportunity to cycle the cavalry out and back in. Again, makes a lot of sense if you're going to be in a mirror match as Bretonnia. I actually see Prussian Prince play as Bretonnia a fair bit when I see him play. Oh boy, Gobbo Slayer's got a doozy here. Ouch. All these Knights of the Realm and other units in here, and that Dwellers Below from Gobbo Slayer was devastating. Going to be some spearmen brought in to allow those cavalry to cycle out, but that was a lot of damage done, and well played by Gobbo Slayer there. We're going to see a whole lot of this, folks. Some people might be like, well, there's not much strategy in this, it's just a big blob fight. That's actually not true. See how they're going for the cycle charges here? And then you got to have a unit there to help your units pull out without getting as much damage, and then cycling that charge back in. Keeping your Lord alive is going to be absolutely critical. See, one of the Paladins for Prussian Prince has taken a bit of a savaging, and then a Paladin for Gobbo Slayer straight up routed here. So, but, I mean, at the moment, I'm seeing a lot of red bannered units here. And if you run out of other units, then the Enchantress and the Paladin are going to take a bit of a beating here. You have some Shield of Thorns, extra physical resist, and some healing coming in here. Yeah, this is going to be an interesting outcome. I mean, it is pretty close right now. Probably looks like Gobbo Slayer has the advantage. I don't think Prussian Prince is out of this, based on what I'm seeing on the map still. Kind of just depends on how a few things play out. You still have Chalice, you've still got healing. This is definitely a bad situation here. The leadership here basically surrounded, but it looks like a lot of the knights pulled out to meet the oncoming charge of Prussian Prince's regrouped Grail Knights, and that might give the leadership an opportunity to try and escape this. Yeah, and here comes more support. Knights of the Realm, Grail Knights coming in, looking for those charges. Paladin, it looks like, for Gobbo Slayer came back from routing and is just trying to keep Prussian Prince's Paladin busy, and it's achieving that at the moment. The Fey Enchantress will actually do decent damage against some of these Grail Knights because of her magic attacks. However, she is very vulnerable to these Knights as she's relatively low armor, and many of these Knights have an anti-large capability. So it's kind of an interesting trade. You kind of want her in melee where she's not taking a lot of damage, because she has this Mist of the Fae, or whatever it's called, that eats hit points off of nearby units. This one right here. So, Mist of the Lady. You kind of want her in melee, but you don't want her dying, right? Like right here. It's definitely not the fight that she wants to be in, near this Paladin, because a Paladin will shred her real quick. So, still a relatively close fight. It had looked really good for Gobbo Slayer a moment ago. A lot of his units and his chaff just routed, though I can imagine they will probably be coming back. And as I look over here, we still got Grail Knights. Nice Chalice bombardment there to get some damage in. Looks like the Fae is staying alive for Prussian Prince, if only just. Now has Paladin support as well against these Grail Guardians. Not a fight they want to get caught in long term. Now the chaff for Prussian Prince is starting to rout, so these Spearmen at Arms and the Peasants routing. That's not good. You definitely want the chaff in here to help your cavalry. It helps block charges and kind of just blob things up in general. Make the cavalry a little less effective at being able to just come straight after the leadership of your army. There are 2 Paladins in the fight for Prussian Prince. That will work to his favor. However, there's quite a few more Knights left on the side of Gobbo Slayer, and quite a lot of chaff. The power bar not looking good for Prussian Prince. But like I said, I don't think this is technically over yet. Kind of just depends on how a few things go here. Numbers-wise, it's obviously in favor of Gobbo Slayer. Just gonna have to keep an eye on this. It's a tight fight. I honestly don't know what's going to happen here. As these units get up into combat, you can see that they're all suffering from Mist of the Lady. And Gobbo Slayer's not getting the same benefit. Now, granted, it's only on single entities at this point, so it's probably more of a benefit for Prussian Prince than it is for Gobbo Slayer. It really hurts these units that are already fairly weak to keep just losing hit points merely from being in the presence of the Fae. So she causes a lot of damage in that respect, if you can keep her alive. So the longer you keep her alive, the more damage she can cause. And then, of course, she has the Chalice and Dwellers Below and stuff like that. So Fey Enchantress is definitely capable of dishing some damage in the right scenarios. This is not looking good for Prussian Prince. Starting to see some routing in here. But at the same time, some units starting to rout for Gobbo Slayer. Oh, and they stabilize. Yeah, his Fey Enchantress has to flee. Does still have some Knight support, though. And that's going to be a big deal, having those Grail Guardians be able to block off Prussian Prince's leadership. That was a dangerous moment there for Gobbo Slayer, but it looks like his Fey Enchantress is free, at least at the moment. These Grail Guardians are really down to some of their last hit points. They have a lot of models left, considering they have almost no hit points left, and they did help finish it. Very, very close fight. That fight was actually quite close. Like, just a few Knights less, for Gobbo Slayer, and that could have swung the other way, and then vice versa. So really, really close fight there, and a great opener to this best of 5 series here, as Prussian Prince is narrowly defeated by Gobbo Slayer in a Bretonnia matchup, or mirror matchup. Let's take a look at the stats on the Fey Enchantress, what I was talking to you about damage. Between her magic, like the Chalice and the Mist of the Lady, Dwellers Below, I mean, just look at the damage value that you get on a unit like the Fey Enchantress. She remains, to this day, one of my, and even better on Gobbo Slayer over here. And I mean, the numbers were already really good on Prussian Prince, and even better over here on Gobbo Slayer to help pick up that win. So Fey Enchantress has long been one of my favorite lords for Bretonnia. She may not fit every matchup that Bretonnia needs to fight, but I like her as a lord pick. I think thematically it's a lot of fun because, you know, the Bretonnians all serve the lady, right? And it's just, I don't know. I find it like a very fun thematic pick. Maybe she's not always the best multiplayer pick, but she's certainly almost always my favorite one in campaign. She plays a little different in the magic and stuff like that. I don't know why. I've always been kind of fond of her as a Bretonnian lord, but just damn. Anyway, cool army picks, very similar to each other. You can see both players had similar mindsets coming into this, and the gameplay reflected that because it was a tough mirror matchup, basically, like literally almost a mirror. It was almost the same matchup back and forth, and like I said, a narrow victory. Anyway, let's move on to match 2. So Gobbo Slayer up 1-0. Let's go see what the second battle brings. Here we are in match 2. This one's going to be on Toothgrass Hill. Greenskins versus Vampire Coast. So Prussian Prince is the Greenskins, Vampire Coast is Gobbo Slayer. He has got some wolves, Mournghouls, bombers, a couple of Johnny Depthguard, and then Prussian Prince is basically rocking Grom with a Savage Orc army. And I like the pick of the Savage Orc army here. They do tremendous damage against low armor. I love all the archers too. The archers are going to give him a good answer to artillery, if they can get close enough, of course, bombers, stuff like that that are normally going to be quite a problem. Like the Greenskins can really bring the numbers, and they're a very tough faction. I could see them being a very tough match for the Vampire Coast. But the Vampire Coast in some ways could be kind of a tough thing too, because the Greenskins are going to struggle with terror. Though, granted, I think they've gotten quite a lot better in the latest patch. So we'll see these two players match up. We do have some Orc Shaman here with the Big Wah for Prussian Prince. Let's see, Fist of Gork to give magical damage. So he was preparing for Sirens just in case, and I think that was a very sound call, because that is one of the big weaknesses the Greenskins still have. They are very vulnerable to Ghostbuster type armies, so they have to watch out. See the Scurvy Dogs over here. They're going to be engaged by the Savage Orcs. This is a great engagement for Prussian Prince, and we're going to see Gobbo Slayer wanting none of it. He's going to pull back, and already the Bombers taking a lot of damage from the Archers. You definitely want that. Mournghouls are going to be very susceptible to Archers. Looks like the Squigs here had gotten in an early charge on some Dogs and done a lot of damage. Definitely want to get rid of those Dogs if you're Prussian Prince, because if you're Savage Orc heirs, at this point, if they can survive the Dogs, they're going to be absolutely devastating to Gobbo Slayer's army, because everything he has either doesn't have a shield or it's low armor. He is rocking Noctilus here, and Noctilus will be a challenge for the Greenskins, especially since Grom is on a chariot. Noctilus is on foot. He's anti-large, anti-armor, he heals. He is an absolute tank, and he will be difficult to deal with. Even if you can get him down, you know, with like a whole blob of units around him, he is dangerous. So you don't want to underestimate Noctilus on foot. He is probably one of the tankiest foot lords out there, and like I said, definitely not to be underestimated. Now, Depth Guard are going to really be in their element here as long as they don't get shredded by archers. They excel against low armor, and that is exactly what they're fighting with Savage Orcs. I don't believe Savage Orcs even, yeah, they don't even have any armor. They just have some physical resistance. So Depth Guard are going to be right here in their element, assuming that they don't get shredded by archers. We can see Grom here, though. Grom in a pretty good position at helping to get rid of stuff like Depth Guard. I would say that Grom would excel against elite armored infantry, as long as it isn't wielding a halberd. We're going to see Grom be pretty good. There's a Wah popped by Prussian Prince. He's lost his Orc Shaman, which is unfortunate for him. And again, that's Count Noctilus. He got in there and put a beating on him. Some bombers have survived. Bombers are extremely, like, they got nerfed in the last patch, and they are still extremely good at busting up low armor infantry, and just honestly pretty good in general for the coast. I still like them as like a support to just cheap infantry. Take a look at the Depth Guard here. They are definitely chewing their way through some troops. And like I said, yeah, this is fortuitous here for Prussian Prince. No scurvy dogs over here. He's got a Savage Orc Arrow Boy and the Gobbo Spider Riders, so that is going to be really good for him as far as getting rid of some of the chaff from the coast. We have the Orc Shaman back here dropping a missile attack on Noctilus. Not a great effect there. He's not an easy target, but there were other targets in here that if it hits, like Depth Guard or Morghuls, definitely okay for Prussian Prince. The coast is slow, and without their dogs or Morghuls, they're going to be particularly susceptible to the rain of Daka here from the Savage Orc Arrow Boys. And I do like the fact that the Savage Orcs will be able to hold Noctilus, keep him busy for a while. That's about all they're going to be able to do, though, because you can see he's healing as he fights. But look at Grom, got over here. Between him and the archers, put a beating on the Depth Guard. He's able to ping-pong around this battlefield. He heals. Same with the giant River Troll Hag. Greenskins don't typically have healing, and to have these units that are putting on some hit points, that is definitely a benefit to them, as a loss of leadership for Greenskins is typically pretty devastating. Ooh, that bombardment attack from Noctilus is brutal. Grom definitely going to be feeling that one. So let's see what it looks like here. Still some gunnery mob. We've got some more deckhand mob here. Quite a few Savage Orc Arrow Boys here. Gunnery mob is getting into range of them. Not exactly what you want there for the Savage Orc Arrow Boys, because Prussian Prince is going to want all of those, I think, that he can get. There's still a deckhand mob way out here. This Durkit Squig Hopper is going to do good at cleaning up some of the scraps. That leaves a big fight here, basically with Noctilus. And the giant River Troll Hag is trying to put some hurt on him. Yeah, Spirit Leech, it's a good idea. Noctilus heals, but I mean, anything you can get, you'll take it at this point, because he is going to be a very tough target. And I mean, if I'm just having to take a look at this and guess how this ends, like, clearly the chaff for the Vampire Coast is going to get mopped up unless Prussian Prince makes some kind of massive mistake here, because the Savage Orc Arrow Boys have the ammo and they're not going to be caught. If I were Prussian Prince, I would be playing the power bar here. I'm going to get rid of all this chaff that I can, and then try and do a little bit of damage on Noctilus with my archers, and get the power bar to kill him for me, because a melee, I mean, if you charge all in at Noctilus in a melee right now, he very well might win that. He very well might win it. You can see there that the power bar starts to creep back as he heals himself, and that's exactly what I'm talking about. So Grom does try for a little bit of quick charge in here, and Noctilus is going to give him a bombardment for his troubles. At least I believe so. Yeah. Woo. Yeah, Grom got a savage beating for his trouble. So again, you can see Prussian Prince dealing with the chaff. The archers are trying to deal with the Depth Guard. So a good choice there is. Oh, that unit crumbled back here. It may have been a summon. It may have been a summon, unless the leadership just got that bad. I'm guessing a summon, though? Because this other one hasn't crumbled over here, this deckhand mob that's trying to work its way back towards the battle. Noctilus, look at this, all alone in here is Noctilus. He just ain't gonna care. He's got himself another invocation of Nehek, and being anti-large the way he is, and ain't trying to be body shaming the Troll Hag here, but the Troll Hag does count as a large target, as do the spiders, as do the squigs. No more healing for Noctilus at this point, though, and that is going to be rough. That'll be rough indeed, and he is getting absolutely ganged up on. Again, just look at the way he sits in here and tanks most of this. The River Troll Hag is getting absolutely savaged. But again, the power bar here, like I said, I think it's Prussian Prince's friend. And as these zombie deckhand mobs come back and get shot up, that's going to impact the power bar. Loss of ammunition can impact the power bar too, in the favor of Gobbo Slayer. And like I said, just left to a melee at this point, I think Noctilus takes this one home pretty easy. I mean, unless Grom can cycle charge him to death. And I don't know what the rules are on cycle charging in the tournament. I would assume that it is certainly feasible, given the situation here. But then again, like I said, I don't exactly know the rule. Grom's going to go try and get rid of these, and again, keep working that power bar against Noctilus. I think that's the way I would be taking it too, because I don't think you're beating him in a melee, and I don't think the archers are going to do a whole lot to him. But anything they can do, again, continues to impact that power bar and potentially change the outcome of this battle. This is a really close one, so we're going to be very close on this battle. Let's see what it finishes as here. Yeah, Prussian Prince should have this in the bag because the power bar is really starting to sour against the coast. He just needs to expel some ammunition in Noctilus and push it just a little farther, and I think he crumbles. Lucky for Prussian Prince, Noctilus is not unbreakable. He may not win that melee anyway, but still, not one you want to get into and risk it. What did I tell you at the beginning of the battle? I told you this guy was a tank. Oh, a Spirit Leech. That may do it. That may do it. That's going to do some pretty gruesome damage. Here comes some shots. Yeah, the leadership right there. You saw it. Boom. That's it. So he did end up doing what I thought he might, which is taking the leadership kill on Noctilus, which I think was a great choice. So here we are, 1-1-1. So the Bretonnian mirror matchup went to Gobbo Slayer. The Greenskin versus Coast matchup goes to Prussian Prince. Look at a couple stats here. Decent, I wouldn't even say it's great value here from Grom, but he's still alive, which was a big deal when it comes to, you know, fighting Greenskins. The Troll Hag here got some pretty decent value with damage on Noctilus. The Shaman got owned by Noctilus, and Noctilus, again, picked up some pretty good value, especially when you consider how many hit points he had left at the end. It was really just not being left with anything to fight that hurt him. Take a look at the depth guard, 1,012 out of that unit, and 1,215, so pretty decent value out of those units as well. The archers, I think, were a really good pick here by Prussian Prince, and keeping them away from those scurvy dogs, as he was mostly able to do, ended up being, in my opinion, probably a pretty big deciding factor here. So anyway, hope you all enjoyed that one. 1-1. Let's go check out Game 3. All right, so Game 3 is going to reverse the previous matchup we saw. We're going to have Prussian Prince now playing as Count Noctilus in the Vampire Coast, and we're going to have Gobbo Slayer playing as Grom and the Greenskins. This time, though, he's rocking some Orc Biggins mixed with some Gobbos and a lot of Spider Riders and Spider Rider Archers. So an interesting change up there. And then from Prussian Prince, we're going to see a couple of bombers mixed in here, which I really like the inclusion of the bombers to help support deckhand mob. Basically, you put them in the gaps, kind of like Prussian Prince has done here, and they attempt to bomb anything a little more cleanly in the gaps now. Big change up here. We've got Noctilus on the Necrofex Colossus, which makes him a ranged threat. Still a pretty potent melee threat. But it does make him more vulnerable to archer fire because he's a larger target, and you know, a few other things like that. But again, also makes him a little more utilitarian in terms of mobility and range. We are going to have some deck droppers, and these are deck droppers with handguns, so very high damage potential output from the deck droppers if they're able to survive. So I would think that the Forest Spider Rider Archers are going to want to get a hold of them. We do have Little Wah support in this one, so not going to have anything that would have helped against Sirens, but there are no Sirens on this battlefield. What a hit on the gunnery white there with the Gobbo Shaman to start with. Now, Prussian Prince will now be aware that that Gobbo Shaman is here. They can do all that while hidden, but the fact that he got shot there makes him know that there's a Gobbo Shaman. For those of you not like terribly familiar with the Gobbo Shaman, they're really good at getting decent winds of magic. They can hide, and they can also suck winds of magic away from an opponent and help keep their winds of magic lower. So they're a nice unit for as cheap as they are, and are a really nice support for Greenskins when used right. That bombardment there from Noctilus was pretty brutal. We're going to see the Orc Biggins charging in, and let's see if the bombers, another gunnery, so 2 gunnery whites as support. That's an interesting pick here. I mean, they're decent against infantry, and they have a decent ranged attack as well. I wonder if he picked them for being able to give ammo back to deck droppers or gunnery mob, maybe, at some point. Look what the bombers do, though. Even with decent armor, the Orc Biggins are gonna get bathed in damage, basically. Some of the bombers, though, taking a little bit of damage. You see the Spider Rider Archers are trying to focus Noctilus. They're not going to do damage to him very quick because of his armor, but they will be able to do damage. It's just that Noctilus has a lot of hit points. Nice hit there from the Gobbo Shaman, who's sitting back in a rather protected position. Scurvy dogs trying to keep the Spider Rider Archers at bay. Or sorry, the Spider Riders, those are not the Archers. Right now, the deck dropper's still very much alive, and they are raining damage from above. And the main line for the Greenskins is getting pretty beat up here. So that's not looking good if I just had to venture a guess here. I mean, the battle's not over, but if I was just venturing a guess, that is not looking good for Gobbo Slayer. Let's see if we can spot Grom. Grom has taken some damage too. Oh, he does have an Orc Shaman back here with Brain Bursta. I guess that could technically work against Sirens as well. So a little bit of a insurance policy. Plus, Brain Bursta should be good against any blobs of low armor units. Don't want to underestimate the potential of Brain Bursta. It really looks like the deck droppers have done a great job chewing up a whole bunch of Greenskin infantry. And the Spider Rider archers have not been able to shoot them down. That may become a big problem for the Greenskins here. Let me get a summon here of some gunnery mob. Help do some damage to the Spider Rider archers. It's a great call. Good summon here by Prussian Prince. More magic missile attacks, and Noctilus is mostly shrugging them off. See if we can spot. Grom is still back here in the woods trying to get some hit points back. He's gotten absolutely savaged. I'm assuming Noctilus did some of that to him, because it says taking fire, but he's not near enough to anything to be taking fire at the moment. May have gotten bombarded by Noctilus. That could have triggered it as well. Yeah, this one's... I think this is over. I think Prussian Prince has carried this one. Again, I'm venturing that guess here, barring some kind of miraculous comeback, and I don't see that comeback happening. You got too much ammo with these deck droppers. These units are going to be absolutely savage. Oh, I thought these were handgun units. 2 of them are handgun. 2 are pistols. But still, there's a lot of potential damage here. Deck droppers. They were flying out here, maybe to get the trolls or something. And they started getting shot up pretty good by the Spider Rider archers. They won't want to waste themselves that way. They still got Grom over here that they could be very useful against. And I don't think the Greenskins have any answer to the Gunnery Whites or Noctilus at this point. Just none at all. Like, there's no way they could kill those units. Stone Troll is a tough unit, but not enough to take down all of those. You'd need multiple Stone Trolls there to get that work done, assuming that they wouldn't suffer a leadership rout. Deck droppers doing their business here. Noctilus still doing his thing. Oh, the Gunnery Whites can supply ammunition to Noctilus as well. I didn't mention that earlier whenever I was talking about them being able to give ammo to things. A lot of Spider Rider archers, but again, just not enough ammo to get the job done here. Just not going to happen. A little bit of Greenskin chaff coming back from routing here, but the Hermit Crabs and Noctilus shouldn't have too much problem stomping them out. There are a few Orc Biggins. Orc Biggins, though, are not immune to psychology, and will therefore be very vulnerable to a terror rout up in this fight. Fear even on the Hermit Crabs. Terror from Noctilus, and then couple that with getting shot and surrounded, and you don't have Lord support right up here on top. Grom's back here trying to get some hit points back, and I don't blame him. Like, he's going to need hit points if he wants any prayer winning this fight. Like I said, I think this one's just got to be a patience game here for Prussian Prince. Just stick it out. Some damage now being done to Noctilus for sure, but he's still got a lot of hit points left. This melee is not going to be kind to the Greenskins. Yeah, terror right there. It's like we almost... Yeah, more terror. Yeah, that's going to do it. It's going to shut it down. So Prussian Prince is going to take his second victory in the series, so it is now 2-1 for Prussian Prince against Gobbo Slayer. Let's take a look at some of the units here. Noctilus, he's a pretty expensive unit. He was definitely getting his money's worth out of it, and I would say the same for the Gunnery Whites here. Nice use. We look at the handgun deck droppers. Not a ton of value on these units, but I mean, they did a lot of raw damage. And there's a bunch of Greenskin units out here that just weren't worth a whole lot in terms of gold value, so kind of expected, but in terms of getting them dead, where they can't kill your own army, it's a value that may not be captured. Those numbers. Grom just not able to get any significant damage value done in that fight. This Gobbo Shaman, though, again, may not be anything that just like blows your mind, but for what he cost, he probably got more than what he cost right there in terms of damage value. The Gobbo Shaman, I think, is typically a nice support unit for the Greenskins. They just weren't able to get the damage done here to the coast. Anyway, so there you go. It's 2-1 right now for Prussian Prince, and that means we're going into Game 4 here, which for Gobbo Slayer is a must-win, or if Prussian Prince takes it, then it ends this series in his favor because it is a best-of-5. All right, the fourth matchup here is going to be on Languille. We're going to have Lizardmen versus Tomb Kings. A couple of Kimrian War Sphinx, and this the Lizardmen army is a skink army supported by Saurus warriors. With if I just take a look at this army right off the bat, one of the things that it strikes me as here is there's a distinct lack of anti-large in this Lizardman army, with maybe the exception of the Chameleon Skinks. In large numbers, Chameleon Skinks can do pretty good damage, especially to lower armor targets, but even to fairly well armored targets, given the time, they can get it done, especially with their poison, but there's only 3 of them, or no, yeah, 2. We do have some Poha Sentinels and some Fire Leech Bolas supporting from the air, the Red-Crested Skink Chief, Priest, Lore of Heavens, and I believe that is that Harmonic Convergence? Yeah, Harmonic Convergence, which is a nice buff to an ally as needed, and then Wind Blast, which is going to be good against low armor, which you would expect from the Tomb Kings to some extent. So, pretty understandable pick. So I think Skink Cohorts and Javelins were meant to kind of maybe pick at Tomb King Archers, and Skeletons, anything low armor. And if we take a look at the Tomb Kings here, they actually... I'm pretty sure this is going to be a noob box once it sets up. A noob box, yeah, support, you know, when I say noob, obviously Gobbo Slayer is not a noob, but I mean, that's just the name of it, like what we call it. We're going to see 2 Kimrian War Sphinx being supported by a double Necrotect and Archon. All of them are on foot, which makes them not potentially easy victims for any dinosaurs, for instance, that the Lizardmen brought. And if we take a look here, this Tomb Guard with Halberd is a nice addition to the center. This new box. We just got Skeleton Warriors up front. This will be a tough unit, like if dinos are trying to break through. And again, another Tomb Guard unit here in case you get an infantry breakthrough. This one becomes a lot tougher for Saurus Warriors to wear down. Kimrian War Sphinx provide a lot of nice armor-piercing damage, best against infantry, but they could double in a battle against certain dinos and do fairly well, as long as it's not like a Carnosaur or Krokgar or something like that. Honestly, like, I mean, if I just happen to take a look at it, I think Prussian Prince is going to have a pretty difficult battle here, if I just had to venture a guess. Archon can summon skeletons, and I don't know how Prussian Prince is going to deal with these Kimrian War Sphinx. Like, I'm looking at that and trying to figure it out, and I don't see it. He does have these Ripperdactyls, which do some AP, but they're really meant against infantry. I just don't think they can tear down a Kimrian War Sphinx. That is a lot of hit points. And then the double Necrotech support means that there's 4 heals, I believe, that he can get. Yeah, 4 heals. And if he times it right, you know, you could have a heal every minute for 4 minutes straight, depending on how he wants to use it. Saurus Warriors will, of course, best Skeleton Warriors, but Kimrian War Sphinx are going to take a kitty cat dump all over Saurus Warriors. Even Saurus Warriors with spears would not be in a great place in life in this fight. Trying to get some cinematic shots here. Nice summon here by Archon to just keep these Saurus Warriors busy. That's kind of what I expect from Archon in terms of his support. Look at this, though. What a play by Prussian Prince, getting rid of this Tomb Guard with Halberd almost entirely. What a play. Like, completely taking the value out of that unit. So that was well done, because that is a potentially dangerous unit as well. This Tomb Guard's being used to reinforce this flank. Skeleton Spears back here. The Skink Cohorts trying to get in and discharge all their Javelins. There are actually 2 Tomb Guard infantry. I miscounted that earlier. Standard Tomb Guards, I should say. There's the one with Halberd and then the 2 with Sword and Shield. These Fire Leech Bolas being held in reserve right now. I wonder if that's purposeful by Prussian Prince. The Fire Leech Bolas could be good at helping to get rid of the infantry as quick as possible for the Tomb Kings, because you're going to be in a bit of a pickle here later. You got to deal with, what is that, 5 single entities? And all you've got to do it with is a Red-Crested Skink Chief and then standard infantry. You know, that's going to be difficult. I mean, taking a Necrotech down, even the Necrotechs are going to be pretty decent against infantry. Look at that. Yeah, the War Sphinxes are just not taking enough damage here. Let's see where these Ripperdactyls go for. There's 2 units of them swooping around the battlefield. Looks like they are trying to get in and help knock out Tomb King infantry units as quickly as possible. We do have the Fire Leech Bolas up here supporting the fight now. We've got the Chameleon Skink shooting at the Shabdi, and I'm assuming the War Sphinx is taking some target shots here. Skink Chief. There's a lot of Lizardmen units here, but like I said, it's going to come down to this core of the Tomb King army. Archon is a tough customer, and so will these War Sphinxes be as well. Nice Spirit Leech here, going to do some damage to the Ripperdactyls. I don't know if, even if Ripperdactyls doubled up now against the War Sphinx, I wonder what that would look like. I don't know if it's going to happen, but it's going to take quite a lot of consistent and thorough AP damage to bring down a War Sphinx, especially considering, yeah, look at this restore. It's 1,000 hit points per restore here. That's an additional 4,000 hit points potentially you'd have to chew through as Prussian Prince on a unit that already had. So let's assume that each one gets 2 heals. Whew. Yeah, I mean, that is 7,000 hit points, plus it can heal up to 5,000 potentially. Yikes. Yeah, I think this one is looking very good for the Tomb Kings. At this point, I mean, you are going to get some skeleton summons, but I mean, the Fire Leech Bolas don't have a whole lot of stuff they're going to be terribly effective against, and honestly, their friendly fire may be a bit of a problem. But I mean, you got to do what you got to do. You got to try and sink as much missile damage as you can into these War Sphinxes. Necrotechs are going to actually do pretty darn good in this melee. This one's getting singled out and killed, which is a good play by Prussian Prince. But like I said, they are meant to fight against infantry, and that's what was mostly left here at the end. Prussian Prince putting up the best fight he can do. Look at this Liber Mortis now as well. It wasn't hard enough to get rid of the hit points on the Sphinxes. Now they had a lot of physical resist for a short time there. Yeah, Prussian Prince is throwing the kitchen sink at this, giving it everything he's got. Probably taking a shot at Archon here. He needs to, but War Sphinx are going to make him pay for that as well. Red-Crested Skink Chief does have the advantage of doing decent damage to other infantry targets and being a difficult target for the big monsters, but he's running out of support here. Once the support's gone, I'm pretty sure he's going to start getting savaged by the War Sphinx. And even Archon should be able to lay down some decent damage if he gets a shot at him, just because the Skink doesn't have particularly high damage values, or sorry, high armor values. Archon is decent in melee. He's a decent melee combatant. Skink does do poison, though, so he will nerf Archon. But I would assume the Skink would win a straight-up duel. But this isn't a straight-up duel at this point. There's quite a bit of support mixed in. See the Skink getting pushed around here by the War Sphinx. They just pushed him totally out of the fight. There's one Necrotech, another Liber Mortis here. And Prussian Prince is just going to get outlasted in this fight by the Tomb Kings. So a nice pick and well played there by the Gobbo Slayer. Being, I guess, slightly premature here, but I just don't think there's a way that Prussian Prince turns that around. Nope, there is not. There goes the army losses. And let's go check out the end battle screen. So tied at 2-2, sending us into Game 5 between these two players. And let's take a look here at Archon, who did some nice work. His Necrotechs not getting a ton of value here, but if they're healing the War Sphinxes, then they were helping to contribute to the value they get off the War Sphinx. Look at these, both these units over 50% health. One of them probably closer to 75% health. But just a stellar pick here. It ended up being a fantastic pick. And honestly, as I think about like the Kemrian War Sphinx, the only thing that it's weak to from the Lizardmen roster, I mean, it would be a limited number of things it'd be weak to. Solar engine shots for a long period of time, but I mean, as a Lizardman, are you really going to sit back and use solar engines against a faction that might just hit you with a ton of great bows? No, you're not. In fact, you're going to be scared to pick almost any dinosaurs because of the fact that Shabti with great bow are extremely effective against the dinosaurs, and so I think that probably gave Gobbo Slayer the peace of mind to pick these Kemrian War Sphinx and feel fairly safe about it. And in the end, it became a great gamble for him because those units were absolutely clutch. And from the very beginning of the battle, I could tell that Prussian Prince was going to have a struggle with them, and I'll bet he knew that too. And I think he did the best he could, but there's only so much you could have done in that matchup. Anyway, here we go. Game 5, folks. Oh boy. So, speaking of noob box, now it's Prussian Prince's turn to run the noob box. He has got the high elf noob box going against Gobbo Slayer's vampire counts. Now, this is a very tricky situation for the vampire counts. I have used this noob box against vampire counts, and I have fought against it in the past as the vampire counts. And it is tricky for the vampire counts. I have had my noob box defeated by good vampire counts players. Now, I'll grant you this, I'm probably not at the skill level. I say probably not. I'm certainly not at the skill level in multiplayer of Prussian Prince or Gobbo Slayer. I can tell you that because I'm not in this tournament at this point that they are. So I would be a little bit frightened to have to attempt what Gobbo Slayer has to attempt here. However, these battles can be winnable for the vampires. It depends on what they're up to. Look at this Alariel coming out right out of the bat, getting rid of the Fell Bats. Wants them to stay away from the Sisters of Avalorn. The Sisters of Avalorn, in my opinion, I get this pick in case maybe there's like a Mortis engine or something like that, but at the same time, like, this is such a risky pick because it's only one and it's in a very tight box. It should be very possible for the vampires to shut these characters down. We do have a couple of White Kings supporting the vampire infantry. I think this is a great pick too. These guys are good against infantry and they can help support your infantry a lot longer. We do have Graveguard with great weapon, so clearly the vampires were considering the fact that they might be up against such a noob box. One thing that I kind of wanted to see here was a Wind of Death or a Purple Sun, something to break up a blob. But we do have the Van Karstein, or the Karstein Ring, which is going to give damage resistance to Vlad. He's got Master of Beguilement, which is a great debuff. He's got Raise the Dead, Invocation, things I would expect. We do not have a Wind of Death for Vlad or a Purple Sun, which would require either Lore of Death, and I think Wind of Death. I can't remember. I think it's a vampire spell. I know it's not a death spell, but anyway, we don't see that here. We do have this magic. Oh, that was very well placed where the worst part of it landed right on those sisters. You're going to see an immediate heal here from Prussian Prince, trying to make sure they don't lose any more unit models. And look at the damage they've done already, though, against this Graveguard with great weapon. And this is really bad for the vampires because these units are absolutely critical for trying to cut through Phoenix Guard, who are going to be healed. There's the summon that I would have expected from Vlad immediately into the Sisters of Avalorn, and then we're going to see the Fellbat swoop in. Why not suicide those things? You're going to have to. And then the vampires, the sucky thing here is you have to blob up into this fight. And like I said, if you get a Wind of Death or something, that could be very, very useful here at trying to wipe out one Phoenix Guard all in one hit. Maybe two if you get a lucky alignment, depending on how it goes. But without a Wind of Death, I mean, this is going to be a very uphill battle for Vlad. Vlad will be fine. I don't think the High Elves are going to be able to do much of anything to Vlad. In fact, I wouldn't be shocked if we see Vlad, if he dies, it would be to crumbling. Look at this, just having to try and charge through Phoenix Guard and Spearmen. There is just a Spearman unit in the back, but I'm assuming what happens is if the cavalry swing around here trying to get the Spearmen, they're going to get dumped on by Alariel's Goon Squad. So this becomes a very tricky situation. Look at this nice Star Dragon Breath into the Graveguard. So Prussian Prince trying to get rid of the only real threats to his armored elite infantry. Star of Avalorn. This is going to be absolutely just brutal. This is like Alariel bending Vlad over and just giving it to him. Boy, yeah. It's like cutting a branch off the Oak of Ages and giving him a whipping. Yikes. Yeah, that is rough. The vampires are in, this is a very dicey situation. I mean, look at this, 82 kills already on this Phoenix Guard. 83 over here. And the Keepers of the Flame at 116. Yeah, these units without a Vortex spell are going to be nigh unkillable. Very nice breath spell there from the vampires that did get some damage done, but the Keepers still have 70 of their units. And so as these heals come in, it's going to benefit them because they still have the unit models there and they can definitely benefit from the healing. See more summons. See, Vlad has gotten knocked all the way out into the middle of this fight. He's not even really taking damage per se. Look at how long the Sisters of Avalorn survived all this. They are good melee combatants, so understandable that probably Prussian Prince wasn't worried about zombies killing them. And I guess if you assume at that point that none of the cavalry charges are going to pierce to the middle of the formation, maybe that's why he picked the Sisters of Avalorn just to be zombie bait or something. I don't know. Obviously, if they get shots off, which they did some fair damage to one of the Graveguard with Great Weapon. They could still kind of pay for themselves in that respect. Graveguard with Great Weapon, it's the only real answer the vampires have as far as infantry, as far as getting at Phoenix Guard, but they're not a good answer. And the reason for that is their melee attack is very low, and the melee defense of Phoenix Guard is very high because of martial prowess, or in their case, maybe even martial mastery. I don't remember, martial mastery. So it gives them extra melee attack as well. And so, yeah, the Graveguard's stats are just too low. In fact, I've never been much impressed by Graveguard with Great Weapon. Their cost is probably about in line with what they do damage-wise, but some part of me almost wonders if they should just be a better unit at a higher cost. I don't know, because they get crapped on by almost all other infantry. Again, their cost is not outrageous, and the vampires have a lot of healing and other stuff like that, but, I mean, they are definitely no match for almost any other faction's elite tier infantry. And, I mean, the Phoenix Guard is just going to tank this one all day long. That is why this noob box is a common counter to vampire counts that I have seen in multiplayer and used in multiplayer. And I've had pretty good success with it, even being a relatively mediocre skilled player. It looks like the Sisters of Avalorn finally going to die. They almost pick up a chevron, though, in the process, and 98 kills. So I don't think they'll probably pay for themselves, but they don't really need to. At this point, again, Vlad only just now taking any damage that you can see on his life bar. But, I mean, there's just nothing here to deal with the Graveguard, and the Graveguard is just getting kills for days. Look at this, working on the second chevron for this Phoenix Guard. Sorry, the Phoenix, I may have said Graveguard, but yeah, the Phoenix Guard. Here's another Star of Avalorn, so if Vlad wasn't demoralized enough, he has to be very much so at this point, seeing that the health bar on all these single entities is going to be topped off. And then the Keepers of the Flame getting even more hit points back. Yeah, it's just absolutely brutal. 339 kills for the Keepers of the Flame. Quite a few of which are zombies and stuff, but still, only so many units in this game capable of that. Alarielle is a cruel mistress indeed in this matchup. So much healing. Despite adding Emmerich and changing Tyrion and making, I mean, Teclis, don't get me wrong, he is very, very good on his lore-unfriendly mount at this point. Teclis is very good, but it hasn't really diminished the fact that Alarielle is still probably one of the best lords. Makes me wonder, was Teclis on his Phoenix banned in this tournament, or was it allowed? Just out of curiosity. And yeah, as I mentioned at the beginning of this battle, I was like, I imagine if Vlad dies, it'll be due to crumbling, and sure enough, that's how it goes. That's Vlad. That is what he is best at, is being very, very difficult to kill. He is a great duelist, and he heals a lot of damage, and it's just tough for single entities to take him out of the fight. But here we go. Prussian Prince going to take that one 3-2 in a great series with Gobbo Slayer. Gobbo Slayer was kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place in this matchup. Like, if you don't have that vortex or the or the Wind of Death, it is difficult to cut through this stuff. It is just very, very difficult. Look at this, 3,177 value. The Keepers of the Flame, 2,039. That Phoenix Guard, 1,788. So all of them easily paid for themselves there. Star Dragon paying, well, not quite. I think Star Dragon cost just a hair more than this. But still, good performance considering it's at almost full HP. The Frostheart Phoenix is a good one because it kind of has that debuff. So this is a way of, like, so the vampires used to be famous for them being the Death Star faction, right? They would bring a Death Star back before healing was capped and back before Invocation and the Heck can only heal so many units, all that kind of stuff. The vampires were definitely the Death Star faction, and they were quite good at it. So this is almost kind of like a cruel irony for the vampire counts at this point, that they are by far not the best at Death Starring these days, depending on what they're up against. Against the undead, the High Elves have a brutal Death Star, and it's thanks to Alarielle and Phoenix Guard being near unkillable, like I said, outside of Vortex spells for the vampires, because they just don't have missiles. They just don't have the missiles to do it. This is where, for instance, Sylvanian Crossbowmen being a standard add into the Vampire Counts roster could be a really big deal. So think about how different this battle would look, for instance, if Sylvanian Crossbowmen were a thing allowed for the Vampire Counts without having to checkmark the campaign units thing. I mean, that would make this Death Star much less feasible against the Vampire Counts, because then you have to deal with the concern of if you wall up with a whole bunch of unshielded units, even though Crossbowmen not particularly good against armor, at least not the Sylvanian Crossbowmen. Druki obviously would take exception to that, but even they would be absolutely deadly. But hey, great matchup between these two. Really great to see these replays. Prussian Prince has a YouTube channel still. You should go check it out. I'll have a link. If Gobbo Slayer does, I'm not aware of it. If he does, though, please let me know, and I'll get it linked as well. But hey, Gobbo Slayer, great games and some great play there. And I really enjoyed watching you and Prussian Prince play, and thank you both for participating. Appreciate all the folks who are making the Warhammer World Championship possible. I supported it, my own money into the prize pool, because I think it's a really cool thing. I haven't gotten to cover as much of it as I would like to, but I will try and get in here and cover more of these. So if you enjoyed it, give this a like and a thumbs up to help support those who are putting the event on and help bring more people in to see these. I'm sure they would really appreciate it. If you want to know more, I do have a link to the event in the description. You can check that out. Go look at the prize pool and the brackets and stuff like that, and you should go check it out anyway. They've done a great job organizing it. HeirofCarthage signing out for now. I will see you all soon with some more action in Total War Warhammer 2.